Alright guys, back again, so let's talk about another Living Dead movie, the sequel, Dawn of the Dead, which was released literally 10 years after the first one, where 1968 was the original Night of the Living Dead, and then 1978 was Dawn of the Dead, so they took 10 years to make a sequel, which I think is really cool, because then they took their time. And Dawn of the Dead is the first sequel, like all the other sequels in this franchise, where you will have these different groups of people. Like, it doesn't continue on and bring back really characters from the other movies. It's more about these groups of people are in the world that in each movie encounter zombies. And I think that that's really cool and really creative. For this franchise, I like how they all exist together in this world with zombies running amok, but it's not about the same characters. And I think that that makes this franchise really interesting, whether I like or love these movies. Because there's some I don't really like, just a couple, but it's funny how Dario Argento is the composer for this. Like, him and Tom Savini are both involved. Tom Savini, of course, is the makeup effects, and that's so cool. It's like a match made in heaven because I really love the fact that Dario Argento is involved, and Tom Savini, of course, with his makeup effects, make this great. And I really love, too, another relation to Dario Argento is that the soundtrack is by Goblin. But honestly, the soundtrack, though, I don't really... I've seen this movie a couple times, and the soundtrack I always forget. It's not like a Goblin score that I remember, like Suspiria or Deep Red, or Tenebrae. Like, it's not that same type of score where I remember it. I think that the score was... if I need to hear it a couple more times, because I think, as of now, I think it's kind of a forgettable score, even though I love Goblin in their Argento movies that they've done. But it just seems like the score is kind of forgettable. I don't remember it at all. And now this movie, compared to the first movie, is such a different movie because it's in color, first off, and it's super gory, and the fact that it's a comedy as well, like a horror comedy, it really makes this a great sequel while being so different. It reminds me of Evil Dead to Evil Dead 2, where the first Evil Dead is straight serious and Evil Dead 2 is goofy. This one is goofier in a very comedic way, which I did like. I really did honestly love the humorous tone in this. I loved how the first one had no real genuine laughs, and I appreciate that in the first one. And this one, I think it's so entertaining that these characters are all cracking jokes and killing zombies, and I think that the jokes land. I think they're funny, and I think these characters are likable and strong characters. So I think that's awesome. And also, it's crazy. It's funny with the humor of humor that's just subtle, where you see the zombies walking around, and then in a group of zombies you see a Buddha zombie or you see a nun zombie. That's just really funny because it's just usually in zombie movies you don't really see that. You just see normal people. But in this, you've got a nun and you got a Buddha. That's funny seeing those kind of references and that humorous tone with just zombies walking around, and you can laugh with just moments like that. That's really funny. And I like how there's a scene where they're riding around in semis hitting zombies, or having a zombie get shot in the head, and their head splatters on the character's face. It's gory, but again, it's so funny because it's just so... the way they execute it just works very well, and I think that really is one of the best things about this movie. And then there's a scene where one guy is injured, and he is moved, they carry him around in a wheelbarrow around the mall, and I think that that's really hilarious too. It's just the use of humor can be subtle, but I think it works very well because it's not over the top humor. And not to say over the top humor doesn't work, but it's good in this film doing it that way. I really appreciate that. And I love the fact that this is set in a mall. That is such a cool location for a horror movie. You've got other movies like this, like Chopping Mall, which is a great slasher from the 80s, which is about killer robots in a mall chasing people, chasing teens. And that's hilarious too, but this one might be one of the first horror movies set in a mall. I don't know. In 1978, I'm trying to think if there's anything set before this where the whole movie is set in a mall. I don't think so, I haven't seen every horror movie in the world, but I feel like there hasn't been one until now, until 1978. And I love how big and expansive this mall is. That's a very, very cool location because it really, it's so wide and expansive that the zombies could be anywhere, but also you can have these characters like breathe and have fun and then hide and go fight the zombies. Like, it's really, really entertaining. Like, there's also some emotional moments too. Like, there's a great scene of a character, Roger, who gets bitten and he starts turning. So the character Peter has to shoot him, and whenever he does, like, you actually do feel genuinely sad because these characters did have such fun in the movie, and you did grow to care about them. That whenever he gets shot by turning, it's great. Love that. And again, this is something everybody talks about, that the gore is fantastic. One scene in particular that everybody talks about, when this guy gets, like, his guts pulled out, like, that's so effective. And again, Tom Savini, it's great, but it is such an effective moment. And just the gore overall, like, is hilarious, but it's also gross and disgusting, and I really like that. And I love how the characters Peter and Francine make it out to an unambiguous note if they live or not. I really appreciated that. And you don't know, because again, these movies don't connect to each other, and the next movie, like, doesn't connect. So it's like, at the end of the movie, they're in a helicopter, they're halfway out of gas, and they're like, we'll see if we can make it somewhere, and then the movie ends. And I thought that was a cool way, even though you don't know if Peter and Francine survive, it's cool that they ended it on that note. I like that ambiguous note. And I thought it was hilarious that they ended the movie with zany music. Like, I thought that was pretty awesome. And there are some other horror movies that do that I love, like An American Werewolf in London does the same thing. But I really thought this was a funny ending credits music. It's just a really weird, it's just a zany set of music that was in the movie earlier, but I think that is really fun. And again, just, this is a great sequel. Like, overall, the first Night of the Living Dead is fantastic, and this one is too, and I don't know which one to pick if I had to rank these two, because they're both great. The first one is super, super serious and really creepy, while this one is really funny and powerful with the characters. So, and gory. And it is great gore. So it's hard to choose. These both are great companion pieces to each other, even though they're not really technically connected. They're just in the same universe where, like, zombies are running around. So that is my basic thoughts on Dawn of the Dead from 1978. Tell me down below what you think of this movie. Do you like this movie? Do you dislike it? I feel like a lot of people like it. It's considered a good horror movie by a lot of people. So that is my review. And if you like this, check my links down in the description below for all my social links. And thank you guys so much for watching.